The colony of New Dusk was quiet that evening. The streets were dusty, the air filled with the smell of old engines and recycled smoke. Shops had closed early, and only a few people walked under the flickering lights. Among them was a poor human boy named Eli, no more than 16, thin but full of warmth. He worked all day cleaning broken machines for scraps, earning just enough to buy one meal. But tonight, he had something left, a small packet of bread and soup, saved carefully for later. As he passed through an old alley near the junk market, he heard a weak sound. It was not quite human, more like a whisper mixed with pain. Eli turned and saw someone lying against a rusted wall, a woman, though not like any human he had ever seen. Her skin was soft blue, her hair pale like silver dust, and strange faint lines glowed under her skin. She looked cold and starving, her eyes half open. For a moment Eli froze, thinking she might be dangerous. But then he saw her trembling hands trying to lift an empty cup. There was nothing inside, not even water. Without thinking, he walked closer. "Hey, are you okay?" he asked gently. She blinked, her voice soft and broken. "HFY." The single word was enough to break Eli's fear. He took out his packet and placed it beside her. "It's not much, but it's real food," he said with a shy smile. She looked at the food, confused, as if she didn't understand what he was giving her. Then she reached out slowly and touched the bread. The moment her fingers met the crust, a small glow pulsed through her skin. Eli stepped back, eyes wide. What was that? But the glow faded quickly, and she began to eat with quiet tears in her eyes. The boy sat nearby, watching her. She ate every bite like it was the first meal in years. When she finished, she whispered, "Thank you, human." Her voice was calm, but there was a strange weight behind it. Eli smiled awkwardly, scratching the back of his neck. "It's fine. You looked hungry," he said. "I'm Eli, by the way." She looked at him for a long time before replying. "Rin." Rin tried to stand but fell back, her legs weak. Eli caught her arm before she hit the ground. Her skin was warm now, glowing faintly where he touched it. He pulled back quickly, feeling a small spark pass through his hand. "Whoa, sorry, I didn't mean to." "It's all right," she said softly. "It has been long since anyone touched me with kindness." Eli didn't know what to say, so he just helped her lean against the wall. "You should rest here. It's safer than the open street," he said. She nodded, her glowing eyes watching him carefully. For a moment, silence filled the alley, broken only by the hum of faraway engines. Eli turned to leave, but she called out, "Why did you help me?" He looked back and shrugged. "I don't know, maybe because someone should." That made her smile, a small, sad smile that seemed older than time. She whispered something in her own language, and for a second, a symbol appeared on her wrist, shining like starlight. Eli didn't see it. He was already walking away, feeling strange warmth in his chest. Above them, unseen, an old satellite caught the faint pulse of light and transmitted a signal into deep space. A beacon had been awakened. That night, Eli slept in his tiny room under the repair shed. He couldn't stop thinking about the alien woman in the alley. Her eyes, her glow, her voice, all felt mysterious but somehow peaceful. He didn't know who she was, or what danger might come from helping her. But deep down, he felt he had done the right thing. He smiled before closing his eyes, unaware that far beyond the sky, ancient engines had already begun to stir. And somewhere in the endless dark, someone, or something, had heard the signal. The stars blinked above the sleeping colony. The wind whispered through the metal streets. And a young boy's kindness quietly changed the course of a galaxy. Morning light crept through the smog of New Dusk, turning the metal rooftops gold and orange. Eli woke early, still thinking about the blue-skinned woman he had fed last night. He wasn't sure if she would still be there, or if she had vanished like a dream. Part of him wanted to forget it, to focus on work, but his heart kept pulling him back to that quiet alley. So he packed a small meal again, a piece of bread, some fruit, and a warm drink, and walked through the dusty streets. When he reached the alley, she was still there, sitting on the ground with her back against the wall. She looked stronger now, her silver-white hair no longer tangled, and her glowing skin shimmered faintly under the light. Rin opened her eyes as he approached, and for the first time, she smiled. "You came back," she said softly. "Of course I did," Eli replied, setting down the food. You look like you could use breakfast. She blinked, confused by the word, breakfast? He chuckled. It means food you eat in the morning. She tilted her head, repeating the word slowly, as if learning it for the first time. Break, fast, she said, and smiled again, her voice light like music. Eli sat beside her, sharing small pieces of fruit. He told her about the colony, the scrapyards, the trade markets, and the endless repairs he did for old robots. She listened with deep curiosity, asking about things humans considered simple. What is rain? She asked once, and he laughed. It's when the sky gives water. That made her close her eyes, a soft glow pulsing across her hands. Your world is kind, she whispered. Eli shrugged. It's not always kind, but sometimes people try. As the morning passed, old scavengers passed by, staring suspiciously at the strange alien woman. One man muttered, "Feeding aliens again, boy? You'll get yourself in trouble." Eli ignored him, but he noticed how the people around him kept their distance. No one wanted to get involved. Aliens meant danger, rumors, and unwanted attention. Still, he stayed, feeling something in his heart that told him she needed him more than anyone else did. Later, when the sun turned red above the colony's dome, Rin stood with effort. Her steps were weak but graceful, her movements calm and almost royal. Eli offered his hand, but when she touched him, a faint hum filled the air. A soft light spread from her fingertips, tracing shapes in the dust, circles, lines, symbols that shimmered like stars. Eli gasped, What is that?" Rin looked down, her expression distant. "A memory," she whispered. "I thought it was lost." Then she closed her eyes, and the glowing patterns faded away, leaving nothing but sand. Eli didn't know what to say, so he asked the simplest question, "Where are you from?" Rin looked toward the horizon, where the faint outline of the sky shield met the stars. "Far from here," she said quietly, "a place that does not exist anymore." Her voice trembled for the first time, and Eli realized she was not just lost, she was broken. Something terrible had happened to her world, something she could not even describe. He wanted to ask more, but her eyes were filled with silent pain. So instead, he said, "You can stay here for a while, I'll bring you food." Her glowing eyes met his, and she whispered, "You are different from the others." He smiled awkwardly. "That's what everyone says." As night fell again, Eli built a small fire from scrap wood. The light reflected softly off her silver skin, and she watched him with quiet wonder. "You help without asking," she said. "In my world, that was rare." Eli poked the fire and said, "Maybe your world should have met mine sooner." She tilted her head, as if thinking deeply about his words. Then she said something strange. Perhaps it still can. High above them, the sky shimmered faintly with unseen movement. Tiny satellites blinked, receiving faint energy signals coming from the planet's surface. The coordinates of Rin's presence spread through the void. Far across the stars, ancient machines woke from sleep. Old codes activated, old loyalties reawakened. The universe had noticed her again, but Eli didn't know that. To him, she was just a lost alien girl who needed a friend. He smiled as the fire crackled, not realizing that his kindness had already changed everything. Not just for her, but for the thousands waiting for her return. And while he dreamed of simple tomorrows, the stars began to move. The next few days passed quietly. Eli kept visiting the forgotten alley every evening, carrying whatever food he could spare. Each time he came, Rin looked a little stronger, a little brighter. Her skin now shimmered like moonlight, and faint symbols appeared across her arms, glowing softly when she spoke. Eli found them beautiful, like living stars drawn on her body. But she always hid them under her torn robe, avoiding his curious eyes. One night, while they shared dinner near the small fire, Eli noticed her staring at the sky. The stars were dim through the colony dome, but her gaze seemed to see beyond it. "Are you looking for someone?" he asked. Her lips moved slowly. "Not someone, something I lost." Eli tilted his head. "What did you lose?" She turned toward him, and for the first time, he saw fear in her eyes. "My name," she whispered. "My purpose." The wind carried a soft hum through the alley, and for a moment the fire flickered blue. Eli shivered, feeling the air thicken. Rin closed her eyes and touched her chest, her glowing hand pressing against her heart. A faint pulse of light spread from her body, reaching the walls, the ground, and the air itself. Tiny sparks floated upward, disappearing into the dark sky. What was that? Eli asked, his voice trembling. She opened her eyes slowly. A memory, she said, and a warning. That night, the colony sky flashed faintly as if lightning had struck far above the dome. Most people ignored it, thinking it was just another malfunction. But in deep space, hidden probes received her signal. Ancient codes unlocked, and silent ships began changing course toward the human world. Something powerful had awakened, and it was coming closer every hour. The next morning, Rin walked without stumbling. Her posture had changed, graceful, commanding, almost royal. Eli noticed and laughed. You're healing fast. She smiled faintly. Your kindness is strong medicine. He blushed and looked away, pretending to fix a broken pipe nearby. I don't know about that, he said quietly. I just didn't want you to starve. Rin studied him, her glowing eyes soft. In my world, that would make you a hero. Eli shook his head. I'm just a mechanic, nothing special. But Rin's expression didn't change. Sometimes, the smallest hearts hold the greatest light. They spent the day talking about stars, machines, and human food. She asked endless questions, and he answered as best he could. At one point, she touched one of his tools, and it floated for a second before dropping. Eli jumped back in shock. How did you do that? She smiled, almost playful. I'm remembering. Then her tone grew serious. But remembering brings danger too. He frowned. Danger from what? She looked at him silently, then whispered, from those who made me forget. As the sun faded, strange figures appeared in the distance, moving through the crowd with heavy steps. They wore dark armor and carried scanning devices glowing red. Eli didn't notice them yet, but Rin did, her body tensing instantly. She grabbed his hand and whispered, We must leave. Why? He asked, startled. They found me, she said, her voice trembling like a wounded flame. Before he could ask more, a deep hum filled the air. From somewhere beyond the colony walls came the sound of engines, low, ancient, and powerful. Rin's markings blazed bright gold, illuminating the alley with radiant light. Eli stepped back, shielding his eyes. Rin, what's happening? She looked at him, sadness in her glowing eyes. The past is coming, and it will not be gentle. As shadows moved closer, she raised her hand and whispered a word in her own language. The light from her markings spread across the walls, forming a shimmering barrier that hid them from sight. Outside, the armored men looked around confused, unable to see through the glow. Eli stared in awe, the air thick with power. Rin turned to him, breathing hard. Promise me you won't leave me. Eli nodded without hesitation. I won't. Her expression softened. Then maybe the stars will spare us yet. The night grew silent again, but high above the colony dome, a distant beacon flared in space. It sent a single pulse across the void, a call that no one could ignore. And far away, deep among the stars, giant ships began to turn toward the little human world. The hunt had begun. The next morning came heavy with silence. New dusk felt different, slower, as if the air itself waited for something unseen. Eli woke to the sound of engines passing low over the rooftops. He stepped outside, squinting toward the horizon, and saw dark shapes drifting across the pale sky. Military drones, dozens of them, scanning the streets below. No one knew why they were there, but everyone stayed inside, doors shut, voices low. Eli's heart raced. He ran toward the alley where Rin hid, praying she was still safe. When he turned the corner, she was already waiting, standing in the shadow with her hood drawn tight. Her skin no longer glowed, but her eyes still shimmered faintly under the dark fabric. They've come, she whispered before he could speak. Eli frowned. Who? The Watchers, she said, her voice shaking. My father's hunters. Before he could ask more, a metallic sound echoed through the street. A group of men in black armor marched between the buildings. Their helmets glowed with scanning beams, red lights sweeping across walls and faces. Each step they took was heavy and exact. One of them held a holographic device projecting an image, a face glowing blue. Rin's face. Eli froze, his mind spinning. They're looking for you, he whispered. Rin nodded, her expression calm but sad. I can hide you, he said quickly. Follow me. She looked at him, hesitation flickering in her eyes, but then she nodded. He grabbed her hand, and they ran through narrow alleys filled with smoke and noise. Behind them, the soldiers' voices echoed, cold and mechanical. Target signature detected nearby. They reached an old tunnel beneath the repair yard. It smelled of oil and rust, but it was quiet and hidden. Eli pulled open a metal door and guided her inside. "This place hasn't been used in years," he said, catching his breath. Rin touched the wall gently, her fingers glowing faintly. "Your world hides its beauty under dust," she whispered. Eli managed a small laugh. "Yeah, well, dust is free." For a moment, silence returned. Rin sat down, pulling her cloak tighter around her shoulders. Eli knelt beside her, confused and curious. "Who are they? Why do they want you?" Rin looked at the ground, her voice soft. "They are not enemies, not truly." He frowned. "Then why are they chasing you like prey?" "Because I ran away," she said, her voice trembling. "And because my father would rather see me chained than free." Eli's stomach twisted. "You mean your father sent them?" Rin nodded slowly. "He thinks I betrayed him, but I only wanted peace." Her eyes glowed faintly again, golden light flickering through the shadows. Eli didn't understand everything, but he could see the pain behind her calm face. He wanted to say something comforting, but before he could, the sound of boots echoed above them. "They're close," she whispered. Eli turned off the small lamp and held his breath. The tunnel filled with faint footsteps. Voices muttered through radios. No heat signatures detected. Rin closed her eyes and raised her hand. A thin shimmer spread across the room, invisible to the soldiers but bright as fire in her mind. The men walked past the hidden door without noticing. When they were gone, Eli let out a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. "That was close," he whispered. Rin nodded weakly. "Every time I use power, I leave a trace." Eli frowned. "So we can't stay here." "No," she said quietly, "but we cannot run forever either." He sat beside her in the dim light. For the first time, fear began to creep into his heart. Not fear of her, but of losing her. Something about her presence felt right, like she belonged beside him. He wanted to keep her safe, even if it meant standing against the whole galaxy. He didn't know why he felt that way, but his heart did. Rin noticed his expression and smiled softly. "You remind me of someone I once knew." "Who?" he asked. "A friend," she said. "A human, long ago." Her words confused him, but before he could ask, she pressed her palm to the ground. A faint vibration rippled through the floor. "The stars are moving," she whispered. "They will find me soon." Eli stared at her. "Then we'll be ready." She looked at him, a poor boy with grease on his hands and courage in his eyes, and whispered, "You already are." Above them, in the black sky beyond the colony dome, something vast drifted through the clouds. The first of the great ships had arrived, silent and unseen. Their engines hummed like thunder, shaking the air. And far below, in the tunnels of New Dusk, a boy and an alien girl waited for fate to knock. Night fell heavy over New Dusk, but the stars were no longer calm. From beyond the clouds came a low vibration, soft at first, then deep enough to shake the ground. Eli woke with a start, the metal walls of the tunnel trembling around him. Rin was already on her feet, her glowing eyes fixed on the ceiling as dust rained down. "They found us," she whispered, her voice filled with both fear and relief. Eli ran to the doorway and peered outside, and what he saw made his breath stop. The sky above the colony burned with light. Enormous shapes floated beyond the dome, vast alien ships gliding like silent whales through the dark. Their hulls shimmered with blue energy, each movement humming with power. People filled the streets, shouting, running, pointing to the heavens. Some thought it was invasion, others thought the world was ending. Eli turned back to Rin. "We have to hide," he said. She shook her head slowly. "No, there is no more hiding." Her markings began to glow brighter than ever before, lighting the tunnel with golden warmth. Eli stepped back, shielding his eyes. "What are you doing?" he asked. She looked at him gently. "Ending what I began." She raised her hand, and a beam of light burst from her palm, shooting through the ceiling like a signal. The beam passed straight through the dome and reached the sky. Above, the largest ship shifted course instantly, turning toward her location. Eli felt his knees weaken. "You're calling them here?" "Yes," she said softly, "because running will only bring death to others." Her glow faded slightly, and she turned toward him with sadness in her eyes. "You have shown me kindness without reason," she said, "and I can no longer let your people suffer for me." Eli shook his head. "You don't have to face them alone." But Rin only smiled. "You do not understand. I am not their enemy." Outside, thunder rolled as the alien ships descended lower. Their light painted the entire colony in shades of silver and blue. Every engine roar echoed like the voice of a god. The streets were chaos, soldiers yelling, civilians fleeing toward the shelters. Eli ran after Rin as she walked calmly into the open square, her cloak fluttering in the wind. The crowd fell silent when they saw her glowing form standing beneath the storm of ships. Someone shouted, "It's her." She called them. Blasters charged, soldiers raised their rifles, but Rin only lifted her hands. "Do not fear," she said, her voice carrying through the air, amplified by something unseen. Her words echoed across the colony, calm yet commanding. "I came here not as conqueror, but as daughter." Before anyone could respond, the ground shook violently. A beam of light from the central ship struck the surface, forming a shimmering gateway of energy. Through it stepped tall, armored figures, the same hunters who had searched before. But now they knelt, their weapons lowered. Eli stood frozen as one of the armored men removed his helmet, revealing silver skin and glowing blue eyes like Rin's. "Your Highness," he said, bowing deeply, "we have come to bring you home." Gasps filled the crowd, whispers spreading like fire. Rin closed her eyes, pain and pride mixing on her face. "I told you," she said quietly to Eli. "I am not what you thought." He stared at her, still unable to believe. "You're a queen." She shook her head. "A runaway princess, maybe." The lead soldier spoke again. "Your father waits. The throne is empty. The empire needs you." Rin's glow dimmed as she looked around at the frightened humans. "My empire has forgotten mercy," she said, "but he has not." She pointed to Eli, standing small among the soldiers and the ships. "He reminded me what it means to care." For a moment, no one spoke. Then Rin turned toward Eli and pressed something glowing into his hand, a crystal shaped like a tear. "Keep this," she said. "It carries my memory, and when the stars call again, you will know where to find me." Eli looked down at the crystal, its light pulsing softly with her heartbeat. He wanted to speak, but words wouldn't come. Rin smiled one last time and stepped into the beam of light. As she rose toward the ship, her golden glow spread across the colony, cleansing the sky with warmth. People fell to their knees, their fear melting into silence. The ships turned slowly, rising back into the clouds, disappearing beyond the atmosphere. Eli stood alone in the square, holding the glowing crystal in his trembling hand. The world around him was quiet again, but his heart knew nothing would ever be the same. He whispered into the night, "Goodbye, Rin." Above him, the last trace of light faded into the stars, and somewhere far beyond, the universe whispered back. Days passed after the sky burned with light. The alien ships were gone, leaving behind silence that felt heavier than war. The people of New Dusk still whispered about what they saw. Some called it a miracle, others called it invasion. But for Eli, it was something different. It was loss. He spent hours walking through the empty square where Rin had stood. The spot where her golden light had touched the ground still shimmered faintly at night. And in his pocket, he carried the small glowing crystal she had given him. Sometimes it pulsed softly, like a heartbeat, as if reminding him she was still somewhere out there. He couldn't stop replaying her words in his mind. "You reminded me what it means to care." Every time he remembered, his chest ached and warmed at the same time. The colony began to change after that night. Within days, new machines appeared near the markets, alien devices, smooth and silver, left behind by the ships. They cleaned the air, repaired broken buildings, and restored power to dead factories. Nobody knew how they worked, but everyone used them. People who once feared aliens now whispered prayers to the Blue Lady of Light. Children drew her symbol on walls. Merchants named shops after her. And though no one said it aloud, they all knew. It had started with a boy who gave her bread. Eli tried to return to his old life, fixing machines, gathering scraps, working quietly. But the world didn't feel the same anymore. Every sound reminded him of her voice. Every flicker of light felt like her glow. One evening, He went back to the tunnel where she once hid. The air still carried a faint golden shimmer. He knelt on the cold floor and took out the crystal, holding it close. "Rin," he whispered, "I don't know if you can hear me, but I hope you're safe." The crystal brightened suddenly, filling the room with soft light. And then, a voice, faint but clear, echoed in the air. "Eli," it said, "if you hear this, then I am far away." He froze, his breath catching. "I wanted to tell you, thank you," the voice continued. "You showed me what strength truly means." Her tone was calm, warm, filled with peace. "Because of you, I chose a different path for my people, a path of mercy, not rule." Eli felt tears sting his eyes. "You will always be remembered among the stars," her voice whispered, fading like a song carried by wind. And then the light vanished, leaving only quiet. He sat there for a long time, the crystal dim in his hand. Outside, the colony lights glowed brighter than ever, the machines humming like distant music. But in his heart, there was both sadness and pride. He had helped someone no one else would, and somehow that had changed everything. That night, he walked to the old hill beyond the colony walls. The wind was cool, carrying the scent of rain. When he looked up, he saw the sky full of stars, more than he had ever seen before. And among them, one star glowed brighter, pulsing in gentle rhythm. He smiled softly, whispering, "I see you." The next morning, he woke to find a group of soldiers outside his home. But they weren't human soldiers. They were the same blue-skinned kind as Rin's guards. Their armor shimmered with gold light, and they carried no weapons. Their leader stepped forward and bowed deeply. "By the order of Her Highness Rin of the Golden Line," he said, "this colony is now under her protection." Eli's eyes widened. "She sent you?" The soldier nodded. "And this," he added, handing him a small device. "A message crystal, meant only for you." Eli took it carefully, his hands trembling. The soldier smiled faintly. "She said, when you look at the stars and think of her, she will know." Then they turned and left, their ship rising into the dawn sky like a streak of gold. Eli stood there for a long time, the wind tugging at his hair, the crystal warm in his palm. He didn't say a word, but his heart whispered the same promise he'd made in the tunnel. "I won't leave you." As the light faded, a new dawn broke over new dusk. The machines hummed softly, children played under clean skies, and for the first time in years, the world felt alive. Eli smiled as he looked toward the horizon. Somewhere out there, among stars and empires, Rin was smiling too. And though they were worlds apart, the bond between a human and an alien heart kept shining brighter than any sun. Months passed since the ships vanished from the skies of New Dusk. The colony that once lived in dust and silence now glowed with new life. Clean air filled the streets. Bright gardens grew between the metal towers, and water ran fresh through the canals again. The people whispered the same name whenever they looked toward the stars. Rin, the lost princess who returned to her throne. And Eli, the poor human boy who gave her food when no one else would. Eli tried to stay the same, but life around him had changed forever. He still repaired machines, still walked the same broken streets. But now, everyone greeted him with warmth. Children ran to him, calling him the boy who fed the queen. Old traders offered him free meals, saying, "It's our turn to feed you." He smiled, embarrassed but grateful. In his heart, he didn't feel like a hero. He only remembered a hungry stranger with silver eyes who smiled because someone cared. Every night, he climbed the same hill beyond the colony walls. There, under the open sky, he would take out Rin's crystal. It still pulsed softly, golden and alive. Sometimes he whispered stories to it, about the people, the changes, the laughter that had returned. And sometimes, faintly, the crystal glowed brighter. He liked to think that somewhere far away, Rin was listening. The thought always made him smile. One evening, the sky flared once again. A single beam of light descended slowly, touching the old square where everything had begun. People rushed out of their homes, hearts racing, thinking the ships had returned. But no ships came, only a figure made of light, tall and graceful. When it faded, something remained on the ground, a statue of shining silver. It was Eli, kneeling and offering bread to an alien woman. The crowd gasped in awe, tears in their eyes. At the statue's base, glowing letters appeared in alien script, slowly shifting into human language. To the boy who fed the queen and taught a kingdom the meaning of mercy. Eli stood among the crowd, speechless. He felt warmth spread through his chest as the statue's light reached his hands. The crystal in his pocket glowed brighter, humming softly in rhythm with his heartbeat. Then he heard her voice, faint but clear. Eli, Rin whispered from the stars. Our worlds are no longer strangers. He closed his eyes, whispering back, You kept your promise. And you kept yours, her voice replied, fading gently into the wind. From that day on, the statue became a place of peace. Pilgrims from other colonies came to see it, leaving gifts and flowers. Aliens from distant systems visited to honor the human who had shown their queen compassion. And soon, the story spread far beyond Earth, carried by traders, travelers, and starships. They called it the tale of the golden heir and the human boy. And wherever it was told, people spoke of humanity with new respect. Years later, when Eli grew older and his hair turned silver, he still visited the statue every week. He would sit beside it, smiling at the reflection of the golden light. He never felt alone, because the sky always shimmered with soft golden waves. On quiet nights, when the wind was gentle, he could almost hear her laugh. And sometimes, he swore he saw a glimmer of a ship among the stars. A ship shaped like a crescent moon, its light pulsing softly like her heartbeat. When Eli's time finally came, the people of New Dusk gathered to honor him. They buried him beneath the statue, beside the glowing words that had started it all. And on that night, every star in the sky burned brighter. The crystal above his grave lit with golden fire. And far across the galaxy, an empress stood on her throne, looking toward the human world with tears in her eyes. My friend, she whispered, you taught the stars to be kind. The wind passed through the colony, gentle and warm. Children laughed in the light of twin suns, their voices echoing through the streets. And the story of a poor human boy and a hungry alien queen became legend. A reminder that even in a universe filled with war, darkness, and pride, a single act of kindness could still awaken the light of 1,000 worlds.